Welcome to the Bladtcast. Very excited to be joined for the first time in a while by our friend Jessica, who we call Carsen. I always get so confused on how to intro you, but your radio name is Carsen.
It is, and I really I appreciate that you call me at all. So
That's fair.
You've known me long enough that Jessica is fine. Carsen is just that has shown up. You know how radio is. So I needed a name. Here it is.
And look, I don't want to cast aspersions on anyone's lineage, but you don't have a great surname for radio, you know?
No, I do not.
That not a great one.
No, even when I was Jessica on the air, that my last name was certainly never in play.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But you know, look, I mean, my last name sounds like a Batman sound effect from the old 60s, Adam West show. Blatt. So,
Can I ask you a question about your last name, actually?
Please do. That's why people tuned in.
So this has been a burning question for 2 weeks now. I was doing a Community rewatch, and in season 2 or 3, where they have the school board, and it's Ricardo is the name of one of them, and then Blatt is the guy in the middle. And I know you and Tim are so close. I was like, that's not by accident, right?
Carl Blatt is that gentleman's name. And the greatest thing is I got a Facebook Messenger message from my friend Shelly, who lives in Georgia, about a week ago, asking exactly the same thing. And yes, Tim Sicardo wrote that episode. So he put the name Carl Blatt. And Community fans are so hardcore and they pour over everything. They were convinced, Sicardo sent it to me, if I can find it, that it was referencing someone, that it was like, oh, this is clearly him talking about this person. But in all honesty, he was just giving me a shout out because he thought my name was funny. And I think I got another one in another one of his episodes. Oh, no. He used the name Felix. That's what it was. I know. Yeah. So I managed to be in an Easter egg in, I think, only 2 of his Community episodes, but I was very appreciative of that across the board.
I'm disappointed by myself that I didn't notice it the first time, because I had been a fan from Community since the start, but now that it's on Netflix and I picked up on that and I was like, oh my gosh, like that is incredible. I immediately called another friend of mine and was like, okay, so you don't even know this guy, but this is how cool it is, because I know it's got to be a reference to him. So.
Yeah. So from a Reddit fan forum for Community, Tim sent me this, our friend Tim Sicardo, who is also a past guest on the Bladtcast. The school board member Carl Blatt is a reference to former Swedish Prime Minister Carl Bildt, B-I-L-D-T. So no, it is not. It was just to make me laugh when I tuned into the episode. And my understanding, I think, is that I didn't know it was coming, but it's been a few years now. And yes, so it's not the least common name in Denmark, Blatt. And I've talked about this before. There was a Danish boxer named Christian Blatt, spelled exactly the same as me. And he was undefeated for his first 19 matches. And then I think he got knocked out 5 times in a row and retired. So, I like to think that if I had ever gone to Denmark, they would have seen my passport, and it would have been like if you showed up and you said Mike Tyson. They would have been like,
right.
This is clearly a fraudulent document. So anyway, yeah. So that kind of leads into a great thing. What are you doing with your increased amount of time indoors? Do you have 2 dogs, or am I wrong about that?
Just one. Just one. Okay. So
you have to get out with the dog, because dogs don't like Netflix.
He goes crazy.
As much as we do. Yeah.
No, he does not. So he actually spends a lot of time on the back porch. So I do that. And then I've started running, which you've met me, you've known me for a number of years. I am not built for running. I do not look like a runner, but it's, there's a park by my house, and it's not too populated. So I can go in, because I work at kind of odd times anyway. So I go, and I've started running, and then otherwise it's the couch and Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, whatever you want me to watch, I will watch it. I will give any show a chance.
Yeah, no. I think that I certainly can understand that. I can't relate to it because, when I have been doing my day job, the Dennis Miller option on Westwood One, thank you, oh wait, there we go. That Dennis will ask if I'm watching, this, or did I watch Ozark? I'm like, no, I didn't binge a Netflix show. I would love to be watching this Michael Jordan documentary on ESPN right now, but I'm like, literally, if it's not Daniel Tiger's new neighbor or Peppa Pig's father going on a train journey to do something for work, I don't see it. Like, I only see, the only time the TV's on, kids shows are on. My wife and I are usually fairly tired, but that's my time usually. I mean, we're talking in the mid morning here in Los Angeles. I have a spare hour, surprisingly, but usually the evening is when I can get work done. Like preparing for Dennis's podcast, recording 5 Bladtcasts in a week, like I did last week.
Wow.
But yeah, just to see how people responded to it, and a couple of people liked it, but the number of downloads, I think people looked at it and were like, "Yikes, that's a lot." So you're the only episode.
What else are you doing though? Listen, like what?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. Actually, I've been listening to podcasts. What else are you doing?
Right, exactly.
So they should be listening more.
Yeah, I've done enough things where it's like, oh yeah, this person that I know has had a podcast for 4 years. I should listen to at least one, So I've done a little bit of that. I will listen to a lot of shows that I like from SiriusXM. Their app is great to download and whatnot. So it's a lot of like, well, if I'm trying to get work done, I'm doing the dishes. This is all great. But what I wanted to talk to you about first is that you work in radio and your job is essential. So you have to actually go into a studio.
Yeah, I do. And a lot of my, not coworkers, but I guess contemporaries, a lot of people who are in country music and syndicated in Nashville, they're all working from home. Yeah. So we're, me and the other 3 guys in the building, and we do the shows in here. We're the only ones that I can think of that consistently have been going in. And part of it is because there's only 4 of us in this building. And I have my own studio, so I'm pretty sequestered anyway. Sure. And the risk level for us has been low. And I work with clean freaks anyway, which is fantastic to work with 3 dudes who are worried about being clean. So everything's Lysoled and everything's sprayed. But yeah, it's amazing. And I'm sure you can relate to this with Los Angeles traffic. And Nashville traffic has gotten just beyond absurd over these last about 5 years. And the difference in my commute in the morning, that's like the only thing I'm going to miss when things start opening up and go back, that I'm like, there's nobody on the road. This is spectacular. Although I did manage to still get rear-ended somehow. Of course. So yeah, I'm like, ma'am, there's literally nobody on the road. And there's 2 lanes. What is going on? But otherwise that's, so we've been going in, and it's nice too, the amount of people who call up and say, we really appreciate what you're doing. And again, as you know, in radio, it's like, I mean, we're just coming in and being goofy and talking. Yeah. Nothing's changed, but it's nice.
Yeah, but I can also see the level. I mean, because I can relate to it. The somewhat semblance of normalcy that show that you like in the morning, that no, you don't need it on your morning commute because your morning commute is, down the stairs or whatever. You still like to hear it. And I mean, everything, being able to consume it later in the day, or, download it and listen to it later, I think that goes a long way. I mean, I've only had a couple of, really just a few anxiety, panic attack moments, but one of them was kind of that first Monday after the first weekend. So here in Los Angeles, I think that was the 15th of March. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, I couldn't sleep. I was like, my throat was scratchy. I'm like, great, I got it. I can't believe it. I'm going to get my kids sick, and it was just like all the irrational things. I just couldn't sleep. And and one of the shows I like on SiriusXM, and my sometimes co-host Zia and I talk a lot about, comedian Jim Norton and Sam Roberts have a show on SiriusXM, and they were doing their show that Monday, and that really helped me calm down, because they were just being, Jim was just being stupid about sort of his weird lifestyle and habits and stuff, and I was able to stop focusing on what I was worried about. And then the kids needed breakfast and I could focus on that. But it was like, literally, it kind of helped calm me down a little bit, and I think what I was having was a panic attack. And I think a lot of people have had that happen. I've only had it happen like 2 or 3 times in my whole life. But, also
I've had 1 panic attack ever. And it was, I didn't know what to call it until about 4 days after. So it's understandable that it doesn't happen that often. And when you have a situation like this, where we literally, like, you know, for everybody who thinks they have answers, like I get it. You went down a Reddit rabbit hole. You don't have answers. You don't know. And none of us know. And that's okay. It's just a matter of coming to terms with it's okay not to know. And so being as careful, I guess, as we can.
Part of the frustration is that, look, even the people that you turn to know, you know, you have like one of the most forefront people in infectious diseases. You have this Dr. Fauci on TV. He's like, look, I can't promise anything because I don't know. You know what I mean? And it's like, so that's great that urgent care doctors in Bakersfield made a video that got taken off YouTube. And then everybody's like, well, it got taken off YouTube because they don't want you to know the truth. Or maybe urgent care doctors in Bakersfield don't know as much as some people think that they do, you know?
Yeah.
And then, you know, trailers for documentaries by renowned anti-vaxxers. And I'm like, okay, so, you know, if that's something you're interested in, great. Just know that this isn't like, oh, look, I have this document. This is what's going to bring us out of it. And look, there's very different views on all of this throughout the country. It's interesting to hear where you are. There are a lot of people working from home. One of the only people that I know that's going into their job right now is my friend David, who Bladtcast listeners know as Liev. He was our technical director on the Dennis Miller Show for a long time. And he does a morning show out in San Bernardino County. So it's a little bit more rural. And they're essential. He and his two co-hosts, he goes in and does a morning show, but it's also country music. So the fact that you're working and he's working, I'm like, look, America needs country music.
Yes, we do.
Everything else, like Howard Stern show, Jim and Sam, who I talked about, Eddie Trunk, all these shows that I listen to, none of them go into a studio. Everybody's got stuff at home, you know, but
it's amazing the amount of radio people that I've never invited you to this group on Facebook, but there's a group literally called Radio Peeps, and it's radio people from all over the country. And the amount of them that are posting pictures from their makeshift home studios. And I am dumbfounded. I'm like, I'll get to stay home. Yeah. On the other hand, I think, I mean, I'd be okay, but I like the idea that I still have the routine, that I'm getting up, my alarm goes off every day. And other than the not going out and, you know, masks and social distancing, and that I'm not just popping into the grocery store every other afternoon because I can, like now it's make a list, go only as often as you need to, that, you know, even the workout schedule, having started running, I just go in the afternoons after work. So it kind of, my weekday schedule, with the exception of events at night, like it's not that different. Yeah. So it's just, I think it's helpful for me. And I've talked about on the Bladtcast, but I don't post about it on Facebook, that 3 days a week, we take the kids to another family's house, which we started doing that first week because we read an article that's like, no, kids can't have play dates. But if you do, you got to stick with the same family. So we talked to Felix's best friend's family and we're like, yeah, we don't want you guys, you know, hiring a nanny service where somebody different's going to come in every day. You don't really know what that's going to be. We'll help you out. You help us out. And so we've been doing that. But here's the great thing about that. The kids get dressed at a time. They know that at least 3 days a week we get out the door, you know, around 9:30, depends on the day. And that's why I'm able to have a little quiet time here. And there's, of course, the temptation to just sit in silence in the house that you don't usually get. I was very excited to talk to you. And I wanted to go back to Nashville traffic for a second because we were talking about it. Yeah. I think the Nashville traffic is probably usually so bad because all of the hard rock guys from the Sunset Strip 30 years ago all moved there. Like literally everybody, it seems like everybody is here. All of them.
You know, like the poster boys for that era. Like I know Mark Slaughter, Kip Winger, and so many other guys.
Mark Slaughter, Kip, a couple of the guys from Winger. You got Kelly Keagy from Night Ranger. Some of the Skid Row guys are here. Sure. You know, you've got like Gene Simmons and Ace Frehley, members of their bands live here. Like I remember moving to town, and my second day, my boss, her husband was in this totally obscure 80s rock band called Blue Tears. I was like, what? And some dude who used to be in Wasp, and you know, a lot of the Cinderella guys are here, with the exception of Fred, who's on your coast. But yeah, we have so many of them. And you're right that they just, you know, they're like, oh, well, you know, we're just going to turn Nashville into LA. So welcome to the traffic.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, of course, people aren't getting to play there either. But what I like to do when we have people on from different parts of the country, let's see, last week when we had a few people on, we were talking about Star Trek, but this is a very different conversation. But our friend Jason, who lives in Austin, he talked about how he and his wife, and by the way, he has triplets, so
Oh,
I can
wow.
understand the need to get out of the house.
Yep.
In Austin, they went to a restaurant and they sat in the restaurant and they were able to do it. And it was, and I'm interested in what all these different areas are doing. And, when I talked to my friend Lauren last week, she's in Michigan, and there's weird narratives that, there's people that are like, oh, this place is open, I hope everybody gets sick. And I'm like, well, no, that's the opposite. Even if you don't
what we want.
Yeah, even if you question whether or not it's safe, you hope they're right. And that's what I always say. It's like, look, I want it to be safe for bowling alleys and hair salons. I mean, I haven't had a haircut in almost 5 months now, and I feel like I'm ready for concert season, but there's no concerts. So,
oh my gosh, the saddest thing yesterday, my Outlook calendar, because there's nothing on my calendar because there's nothing going on.
sure,
It showed I had some event yesterday, and then the next thing was supposed to be next Wednesday, May 20th, when I was supposed to see the Stones at Nissan Stadium in Nashville. And I'm like, I took a screenshot and I sent it to somebody, and I'm like, this is the saddest thing I've seen in a month.
Which is funny because I believe yesterday I texted you my Facebook update that Alice Cooper, Lita Ford, and Tesla has been canceled at the Hollywood Bowl. Hollywood Bowl canceled their entire season. They're just like, no, we're not coming here. And that size venue, it makes sense because also those are sold tickets. And I think there's a couple ways to look at it. I think it's a lot more fan friendly to cancel your event because then you can get a refund. When you reschedule the event, obviously Live Nation, which owns Ticketmaster, so they're kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
And they promote a lot of the events that they sell tickets for. So they would like to not give away any of that money. They want to hold it for as long as possible. I mean, we saw this a couple years ago when Ozzy Osbourne had a tour, his No More Tours 2, which I think he jinxed himself with that. And then he was sick. And they're like, okay, well, we'll do it next year. Hang on to your tickets. And now it's like, oh, we just can't this year. And I think that those dates are still not canceled. So you've been holding on to this little piece of paper or this digital UPC code, this barcode that is, could represent hundreds of dollars that a lot of people could use back. And
so for sure.
Your rescheduled show, I think I think it's shitty to reschedule it. Now, I think that in some cases they're like, okay, there's a 30-day window where you can get a refund for your rescheduled show.
Right.
But
well, with the Stones, actually, you can get a refund on your Stones tickets right now, even though they're technically postponed.
Okay.
And which I think is a very nice option, right? Because there were a lot of people who were saying that, yes, I understand I spent the money on these tickets, specifically talking about the Rolling Stones. Their tickets are expensive, even if you're sitting in the middle of the 300s or up in the top tier. But with giving people that option who didn't plan for a pandemic, that being able to get that back or hold on to your tickets. Like, so far I had tickets to, I think 5 Stone shows, and I've held on to all of them.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Well, 2 of them I'm in the pit, and I'm not just going to give up pit tickets because what I saw prior to all this, when the tickets went on sale, the pit ticket price fluctuated based on demand.
Of course.
So if I scooted in at, let's say, I think I paid about $500 a ticket. But there were some people who paid $650. So I don't want to dump that ticket and suddenly they're like, surprise, we're on tour. And then I have to go pay $700 for a pit ticket.
Right. If you're able to hang on to the money and like, all right, I'm going to take a chance that 1, this show gets rescheduled, and 2, when it gets rescheduled, there'll be general admission seating, which there very well might not. I don't quite know what that solution is. Maybe you play the concert over 2 nights and you figure out how to spread those people. I don't have those answers, but I can understand that. And, when this was all happening, you're somebody that I thought of immediately because I used to go to a lot of concerts. I still go to a few a year, but I don't go to anywhere near as many. But I know that you've always, you're always following Garth Brooks around. You're always trying to get to your 100th Def Leppard show. So,
Guns N' Roses, Stones are now like, those were the focus for this year because those are bands I've seen the Stones on every tour since 94, but they don't tour every year. And you get to like one Stone show because they're expensive. And back in the day, you couldn't get the tickets at all.
Right.
So trying to catch up on that, like I've got GNR tickets for August, and those are pit tickets. Same thing that, like you said, I don't know if they're going to allow pit. And if not, I'm going to want something comparable because I am not coming to sit very far away from Axl Rose.
Right. No, exactly. You didn't spend that money to not sit close. And they, of course, want to make sure that people like you that have those pit tickets that aren't disappointed that, oh, well, we're not going to have general admission. And, you can't compensate with a meet and greet because I feel like that's such a huge part of the industry, but you can't do that anymore. I mean, especially like Axl, Axl's not the example of one of the oldest guys, but I made the joke in early March that you knew that this was getting bad when Kiss stopped doing meet and greets, because there's anybody who's just like literally saying you can, Gene Simmons leaned in and said, you can have your money back. We don't want it. And you're like, okay, well then clearly things are bad.
Things are bad when Gene is taking money and saying, take it back.
Yeah, it's like, no, I will not take this money. And look, those guys are in their 70s. Completely should not be doing meet and greets. And I think when they resume their tour, they, don't worry, they'll come up with a unique fan experience that'll also cost $1,200. But it won't be that.
It's interesting you say about the meet and greets because I had bought tickets to see Lindsey Buckingham from Fleetwood Mac, and who I just adore. And he was doing a little solo tour thing, and I managed to get, if you wanted front row tickets, they came with a meet and greet.
Okay.
And so of course I want front row, and sure I'll meet Lindsey. I mean, whatever, but he's had all those health problems recently. Yeah. Well, they rescheduled the show. It was supposed to be, I think it was supposed to be last week, and it's now rescheduled for mid-August. And the point is that they already have the date on the books. Are you going to be able to include the meet and greet with that? Because he's no spring chicken. I mean, it seems to be pretty healthy, but he did just have some major health stuff go through. Yeah. So do you want him do you want him shaking hands? Probably not. So I don't know how that's going to look.
Yeah. And look, so much of the music industry has shifted to the live experience. And that's kind of the one part that they can't deliver on right now, and all the add-ons, those are also problematic. And look, there's this problem that surprisingly, other than Kiss, nobody's giving you your money back very quickly. Although to be fair, they have a lot of other dates for the fall that I think are still postponed. So they haven't given everybody.
I got my Alice Cooper Tesla money back.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that some of that is a promoter, maybe some of it's the venue, but I think you talked about how the Stones were like, you should let people get their money back. I think that if the artist says no, we have to let them have refunds, and that's why there's two big things that I had circled on the calendar. One that I had tickets for, my wife and I were going to go. My wife and I go to probably one concert together every 2 years. Usually I just go by myself or with a friend or whatever. So at Dodger Stadium, which has a capacity of 55,000 people. So already you can see a problem. In mid-July, we were going to see Green Day, Weezer, and Fall Out Boy in the middle, which I consider to be, that's when I was going to go get merch. And that concert has only, that whole tour has not only not been canceled, they haven't even rescheduled. And they're, cause look, that's a big amount of money, cause it's stadiums, and the aptly named stadium tour that features Def Leppard, Poison, Motley Crue, who I thought were retired, but clearly aren't.
But whatever.
That's fine.
And Joan Jett.
Yep. That, at least they posted a notice where it's like, I think in the beginning of May, they were like, yeah, we're going to let you know by June. We just don't know. And it's like, June
1st is the date we're going to find out. But I can't see it happening. I don't. Because like you said, it's stadiums.
Yeah.
That right there. And the Stones are stadiums. So I understand they're postponed. But yeah, this one, they're just, I mean, you don't want to boil it down to them holding on to our money, but you're kind of holding on to our money.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's really what's happening here.
Wherever this money is, you figure they have a a high yield interest account. So it's like, that's
Exactly.
one extra monthly payment of like, well, we're going to get that.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, I think what a lot of people are doing, obviously, let's just say you have eclectic musical tastes. My sister-in-law was very upset because when they canceled the Hollywood Bowl season, her Backstreet Boys ticket went to next year. And so now she has to hang on to it because she's still going to go,
I feel her. I feel,
yeah.
I
know
that.
you do.
Yeah. I do. I get you. I was actually even, Aerosmith was doing a show at Fenway in September, and I was supposed to be in the Northeast. That time I was taking my parents on a trip. That was a Christmas present, and we were going to be in Rhode Island. And I was like, well, shoot, I'm just going to scoot over to Boston and go see that. And now the thing is, that would be such a once in a lifetime experience, seeing Aerosmith at Fenway.
Yeah.
But Boston has canceled all events through September. So I don't even know that you can hold on to a ticket for an event like that.
Yeah. And Los Angeles, I mean, our mayor basically said that there's not going to be any events in 2020 really. And I think that I have a smaller theater show. It's a solo tour by this guy, Greg Dooley from the Afghan Wigs. And that was supposed to be at the end of the month too. That was like, it was the same weekend as Alice Cooper and Tesla and Lita Ford. So I was like, wow, I'm getting all this music in a weekend.
Knocking them out.
Not going to happen. So, but that got rescheduled to October. And when they did it, I'm like, October? You think a theater is going to open, at capacity in October when, and since then they're basically telling us like, we're staying home until probably August, maybe even later. So I was just like, when things started moving to next year at first, I'm like, well, that seems crazy. But now you're like, oh, next year, if you're lucky, you'll be able to do that tour.
Yeah, well, interestingly that you mentioned that, I'd forgotten. I got this email just about an hour ago. George Strait had 2 stadium shows planned, I guess sometime in the next month or so. And they've rescheduled them for August. I think it's August.
Of this year.
Stadium shows. Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm like, I think so. I may have to pull up the email. I don't think it said 2021.
No,
and I was
didn't.
like, oh, okay. So, I mean, that's optimistic. And we'll see what happens. But I don't know that I can't imagine that these things, like the Lindsey Buckingham show is the same thing. It's a small theater show.
Yeah.
So that might be a little bit more plausible. I had tickets to see Noah Reid at a 400 standing room capacity club in Nashville. And maybe that'll happen. Yeah. But I don't know that we're going to see Green Day or Def Leppard happening in front of 50,000 people. I'm just not sure that that's feasible.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine those happening. And the one saving grace was really like, look at the start of the year, end of last year, finances were a little tight. So I'm like, this is going to be the year where I'm just going to see what's on StubHub the week before and maybe even the day of. I went to the last large concert I'll probably see in 2020, maybe even in 2021, because they're happening doesn't mean that I get to go. That's a negotiation with the people I live in my house with.
Yes.
I saw Kiss at Staples Center, but I bought the tickets that afternoon because I was just like, I'm just going to wait, because it's like, even when their shows sell out, they're not really sold out.
I started using the Christian Blatt method. I think it was last year that New Kids and then Backstreet Boys were within a couple of months of each other. And I hadn't bought tickets when they went on sale, and I kept looking, and I was like, eh. And then I think New Kids, I pulled the trigger 5 hours before the show, and Backstreet was maybe at 9:00 that morning. Yeah. But it was the same thing that I go, you know what? They're going to open up. People's prices are going to drop. And some friend of mine called and he's like, well, a friend of mine is selling Lower Bowl Backstreet. He just wants face value. And they're 12 rows from the stage. And I go, well, I found tickets that are 2 rows from the stage. And I only have to pay 75% of that because this dude obviously wants to unload them. So click.
Yeah, and a lot of times, these are, especially when it comes to sporting events, a lot of times they're company seats or whatever, and they're like just anything, Yeah. And like I've gone to Dodger games for $5 for, not field level, but it's like decent enough seats. And
sure,
if you just play that game, and then also if somehow you miss out on the on sale, usually at the box office, you can get something if you go maybe 2 hours beforehand,
For sure. That's when the stuff opens up.
Yeah.
And I work all those angles and all the tricks, and it's very rare. Like for the Alice and Tesla show, I did the pre-sale because they usually do a fairly good pre-sale. And so I ended up with fifth row. That's great. And
Right,
face
yeah.
value, willing to pay for that. GNR and Stones, because I wanted pit tickets and I didn't want your, like you said, those stupid upgrades that they put on them. No, I just want the flat pit ticket.
Yeah, of
and
course.
I know there's only a limited amount and those may not open day of. So sure, I'll go and I'll bite the bullet on those. But otherwise, no, I've started to go your way, which is we're going to wait and see.
Yeah. And then there's also sort of the tier where it's like, you know what, if I miss that show, it's going to be all right. You know, there's the ones where I'm like, no, I'll buy something day of because I definitely want to go. I was going to do that with Alice Cooper and Tesla. I actually didn't buy tickets to it because I felt good about that size venue having tickets available. And then, of course, now I look like a genius. But
you're so smart.
Yeah, and it's like I knew that there was going to be a global pandemic this summer. So
the last show I went to see before everything shut down was actually Tesla, and I saw them at Graceland in Memphis.
Oh yeah, that must have been really cool at Graceland.
Yeah, they just opened up a performance venue in the last year or so, I guess.
Is it on the house side of the street or is it at the center on the other side? Because I've been to Graceland.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember because it was dark when we got there. I couldn't see 100%. I think it's on the house side, but it's got its own gates and building and all this. And it really was a nice room. And I went with a friend of mine from college who lives in Memphis, so super easy. But after the show, we were going back to talk to some of the guys, and I'd mentioned, yep, already got my tickets to see you with Alice. And I said, don't worry, I won't bother you in Nashville because much like LA, it's an industry town and people are always hitting them up and they were like, no, shoot a text. We'll see if and I was like, oh my gosh, what if I could be like, what if I could go back there? And like, what, I'm not like I would meet Alice Cooper, but like, what if, I don't know, I just walked by a sign that said like dressing room that way. That would have been enough for me. But not happening.
I was probably going to bother Brian Wheat when Tesla was in town. That was the other thing. I was hanging on to it because I'm like, well, let me try the guest list. Also, I know a publicist who works with them, so I would have gone to her first before actually bothering the band. And it's funny. I've had this ongoing dialogue with Alice Cooper's publicist. Let's see, Alice was on Dennis's radio show in 2007, and ever since then, I've been trying to get him back on, the radio show and now the podcast. And he always says no, but a lot of times I'm able to, like, it's like, I can't give you shows for LA, but do you want to drive up to a theater in Ventura, which is like not even an hour away? I'm like, yes, I do.
Yes, absolutely.
For free, I'm going to drive down to the Indian Casino near San Diego for free.
100%.
Happy to do it. Yeah,
totally. So, that's I never like those kind of bands that I do have those relationships with. Same thing. I never go see them in Nashville because it's impossible to get the tickets. I'm like, oh, you guys are going to be in Louisville? Sure, I'll drive up. I mean, who cares? It's not a big
and one
deal.
time I was going to be in New York for the All-Star game was at Citi Field in Queens, and Alice was playing at the Beacon Theater. So I got tickets, and because New York, I could actually get to meet him. So I got to meet him afterwards. He was like, at like a restaurant next door. He came over and talked to people. And I told him I work for Dennis, so I was able to talk to him for like 2 minutes about that. So I at least had something. So so that was fun. And I have that's my picture on my Facebook page is with Alice. And then on my other Facebook page, it's a picture of Paul Stanley when he was in studio. So it looks like I get to meet all these guys, but really it's just usually like a brief interaction.
That's all they ever are.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But it's
a cool picture.
Just give me the picture. Cool. Yeah. Hey, those pictures are probably going to be a lot harder to get, That's
true. Absolutely. That's what makes it weird about doing all these interviews that we're doing Zoom, like you and I are doing.
Yeah, sure.
We're doing that with celebrities and artists, and we're either doing Zoom or over the phone. And normally I'll post clips of my interviews with a picture that I've taken with this person. Well, now I don't have those pictures. So it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to play the interview. So it's not on my Instagram. Sorry. I didn't pick out some quick little quip, and maybe I need to start trying to do something creative with it, but
yeah,
I haven't gotten that far yet.
I'll do a lot of screen grabs from the from this Zoom session. You know? And but it's like you gotta take it in the way where it's got like sort of the letterboxing, the wide angle, because then it doesn't feel it's all this. But I mean, the interesting thing, and I think I was talking to you about this, is like I've been approached to have musicians on, not just on Dennis's podcast, which is usually what people want. They're like, oh no, they'll come on the Bladtcast. I'm like, really?
Like,
okay,
all right.
Great. and then, it helps that I'm also a host for an online network, AfterBuzz TV.
Yep.
So I can do stuff for them. But sometimes they're like, and like, I don't know if that's really a fit. They're like, no, you can do it for the Bladtcast. I'm like, what? Okay. So,
all right. Thanks.
So then that's been fun. I've gotten to talk to people. I mean, like I talked to David Ellefson from Megadeth. I'm like,
yeah,
he'll be on the Bladtcast. Oh, okay, if you say so. So
like, bring him. Okay.
Yeah, it's been kind of fun because obviously you're like, well, people are home, and a lot of people have stuff to promote. I mean, we talked about Tesla. They have a new album that came out, the 5-man London Jam, which I like, by the way, a lot. I think that I like their songs in the time since 5-man Acoustical Jam a lot more than some of their older songs. So they're doing newer songs on this. So I'm like, oh, I think I really like this new album that they did.
For sure.
Yeah. So, and maybe one day I'll see them live again, but who knows? So
I know. One of these days.
So that's sort of what I wanted to get back to is how are things considered in Tennessee? What level of openness is there? What are some dates? We're talking it's March 14th, or sorry, May 14th, but it might as well be March 14th.
It might as well be March. You're right.
May 14th is a lot like March 14th, but it's May 14th.
Yeah, so. And Nashville is a weird animal on its own because you had Tennessee, which kind of opened up, I want to say a week or two ago, but Nashville is in what's Davidson County, and Davidson County did not because it's the metropolitan, the population. So they just started the problem is that you just cross the county line. You can go get a haircut. You can go to a restaurant. So it almost defeats the purpose of keeping us closed. But we started off really not like we were already messed up as a city before the pandemic hit because we had the tornadoes hit on March 3rd.
That was like right before.
Yeah. So it was the week before all this went down. So I remember going to the grocery store, I think maybe the Wednesday or Thursday after the tornado, when people started talking about the idea of lockdown. Well, we were already out of bleach. We were already out of cleaning supplies because people were trying to put neighborhoods back together. So it's weird that we kind of almost had an extra week of surreal life happening here. And now that we are on a limited basis opening up, it's not 100% by any means. And it's a weird, the way they're trying to take the baby steps, it's still not the most tourist friendly way to do it, I guess is the best way to describe it, because we have that whole strip, Broadway, that Lower Broad is all the honky tonks that anytime there's a Titans game, and that's where they're shooting, your B-roll footage that you see in between. And all those bars, you can't have people sitting at a bar. You can have people sitting at tables 6 feet apart, but you can't have live music. So while they technically serve food at these bars, these aren't people who really have kitchens that are supposed to be cranking out legitimate food and meals. Like these are people who come to drink, tourists who come to have a good time on a Friday and Saturday night. So there are some of those bars that are like, we're not going to bother opening up because it's actually going to cost us more money to try to do this.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that here in Southern California is just, restaurants that are open for takeout and delivery. It's like that their business model doesn't support that. And they're just like, you know what, we're just going to stay closed. And, we had the tragic permanent closing of a buffet chain called Soup Plantation. It's known as Sweet Tomatoes in other parts of the country, and they were already on some shaky financial ground. And they're like, they weren't open for takeout because it was like a buffet style, and it was like salad, soups, that sort of thing. And they're just like, we're not going to reopen. And that was like, it was a little bit more upsetting than it would be for a favorite restaurant chain closing in that it was the first restaurant we ever took Lucy to, and it was like, because it was all you can eat and it was loud, the kids were really happy there. It was like, you're going to like one of these 12 things in front of you, and if you only like 4 of them, I'll go get 6 others. And that style. But I mean, obviously just buffet style in general, I think I think if you have it, it'll sort of be like when you go to the fancy like resort or some of your higher end casinos in Vegas, where it's like there's someone serving you the food. I think even that's a way off, but I think at one point you're not going to be able to help yourself. And look, that's going to be better for their bottom line, because if I'm not shoveling the pasta onto the plate myself, if I have to say like a little more, no,
Right.
little bit more. And you know what? Let's just go ahead and put a second rib on there. Thanks, buddy. You
Yeah,
know,
like the carving station, you're
yeah,
like, I'm sorry. When I said roast beef,
yeah,
I meant like beef. I
yeah.
didn't mean like,
I didn't mean roast toe.
yeah.
You know?
But you're right. It could actually be better for their bottom line. And that's where, because Nashville has just grown exponentially over these last probably 7 or 8 years. And so much of it is based on tourism, and we've become the bachelorette party capital. And I'm hoping that perhaps maybe they won't come back, but I do understand a lot of people's livelihood, in all seriousness, is built around this. And so when you have these qualifications for opening, it's still not necessarily feasible for a lot of those folks to get back to work, because there's going to be nobody to ride a pedal tavern, or wait, we don't have live bands. Why do we have a honky tonk then? Because then it's not actually a honky tonk, is it? So because even I struggle with, should I go downtown and try to throw a little money at these businesses because they are open and they're trying and people do need to work, but then you get into that, but am I contributing? Am I going to be sick? Am I a carrier? Like, I don't know. I don't know what I am or what I'm not. I haven't felt sick, but I don't know what is living in me.
Yeah, and I think that that's the problematic thing for people when they're making these kind of decisions, because you can, you're getting a little bit less of it now because of, unfortunately, what the numbers are. But people are like, well, the flu kills more people, and I'm like, well, the flu killed more people last year than this did in like 2 months, but then now we're in 3 months, and the difference is, if you or I had the flu, within a day or two, we know we have the flu. Yeah. And then this is like, you might never know you had it. And, you don't know who you've come into contact with. So, and I understand the different angles for, places where there aren't the big outbreaks. They're like, you know what, we're under capacity at our hospitals. We feel like, at least right now, we're able to address any concerns that might happen. So we'll do it a little bit carefully. I think that when my friend Jason was talking about eating out at a restaurant in Austin, I think, there was the tables were apart, and I'm sure that the servers with masks and gloves and things that, honestly, maybe the service industry ought to have been doing anyway, I don't
know if this is bad.
Yeah.
Is that terrible? I don't hate the idea of wearing masks. I mean, other countries have been doing it for years. It's not that big of an inconvenience for me to wear one on an airplane.
Yeah. Well, and just how disgusting airplanes are, I mean, before we flew to New York when Heather was 7+ months pregnant, and her doctor's like, you can go, but like, you have to, we could bring the little tiny Purell. And it's like, when you touch anything, you have to wipe your hands. So we had that mentality now extended to everywhere we go in our lives, is if you touch anything, you have to, So I don't know. I mean, I think the idea of having stricter cleaning standards, look, when you get emails from all these corporations, anybody you've ever done business with, Chick-fil-A wants me to know that anytime somebody touches money, they wash their hands. I'm like, well, I should hope so. I should hope they were doing that before,
I appreciate Capital One assuring me of their business practices during this trying, unprecedented time. I'm like, are you just going to take my car loan payment? Or, I mean, it's online, man. I've never met anybody from Capital One face to face. We cool. It's fine.
Yeah. I was talking about this. I posted about it when Saturday Night Live did their first sort of at-home episode. It was the first TV that I had watched, was recorded, but live on television with the commercials. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't seen a commercial in like a month at that point. And I'm like, oh my God, they all have the sad piano music. And it's like, we're all in this together. And it's like, well, I mean, we're all in it together, on Dennis's podcast, he was talking about this just yesterday. And the idea that, you're in this together with, like home security systems. It's like, no, you're not in this together. The whole point is that we're not in this together, and stay out of my house.
It is true. I was thinking about that. ADT sent me emails, in these trying times. It's cool. Like, just if somebody's robbed my house, can you let me know? That's all I'm asking.
Just wear a mask when you rob my house,
right?
Let's
just keep it cool. It's fine. It's
whatever.
Weird though that I have you know, I didn't think I was being overly paranoid or vigilant about, you know, I was wearing the mask, washing the hands like everybody was doing, staying in my house. But my neighbors, oh my gosh, like I had a man who had his little child with him, couldn't have been more than two, toddling around the neighborhood, who just no mask on him.
Yeah.
And the kid just comes right up to my 100-pound dog. And he's like, is he okay? And I'm like, I mean, the dog is, but I'm not, sir, because now you are about 3 feet from me.
Yeah, right.
I don't
exactly.
know you. I've never met this guy before. It's because, you know, we're all trying to find different ways to get outside. I'm actually walking around my neighborhood. And then my next door neighbor, who is on dialysis, he goes twice a week. He's already had more people over in the last month than I will have to my house in 6 years. and I'm like, what? And some of these people, I've never seen their cars before.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you thinking? What, you know, what is wrong? Okay. And then I go, is it me? Maybe it's me. No, I think it's you. I do.
Yeah.
I think you really need to maybe take even 20% of what they're telling you and apply it to your life.
Yeah. And I think that it's weird because LA County has a mandatory, if you're outside, you should wear a mask. It actually says, but not for children. I'm like, what? No, I would put the children first and then me
Right.
second. Like put it on my kids. And then like, I understand there's the idea that it's got to seem weird to some kids, and it, you know, the whole thing's going to be a little bit traumatic, unfortunately. I feel like, you know, Felix is 4, Lucy's 2. He's gonna remember this weird time, but as time goes on, he'll remember less and less. Lucy, the only thing that she really does is she'll pick up a washcloth and pretend it's her mask. She's like,
Aw.
my mask. So, you know, it's like, all right, good, make a game out of it. But
Yeah.
and I don't know, look, and I know people from different parts of the country are watching this and they're like, oh, well, we don't wear masks. You might not have to where you live. And you know, it's, but at the same time, don't come over to me. You know, I mean, that part is still recommended even everywhere, all the places that are open, you know, and you know, so it's just like, this is what I'm comfortable with. And you'll see a lot of people. It's funny because growing up in the New York area and working in New York, I usually avoided people when they were on the street with me anyway. So I would like walk through the middle of the street to get around people before.
Right.
So now I'm like, there's not as many cars right now. It's fine. I'll just go.
Yeah. That's me with downtown Nashville. If I, for some reason, am out at a show or a hockey game on a weekend night where you have all these tourists, I mean, there is nothing I hate more. It's the equivalent of working in Rockefeller Center at Christmas time when all you wanted to do was just like, get them out of my way. So you, like you said, you'd walk in the street. I was used to doing that in Nashville anyway. I will walk right around you. I don't care how big a berth. It doesn't matter if we're in a pandemic. I don't want to be near you anyway because people are gross.
Because exactly. So as you know, different areas are more comfortable with you know, different levels of opening. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, there's this concert that has been scheduled for Alabama that I think is actually not going to happen on the day it was scheduled for this Friday, the 15th. And it's this guy, Travis McCready, who's doing a solo show. He's from a band called Bishop Gun that I kind of remember, but this is him doing a solo tour. And he was going to play at this theater. I guess it's an old Masonic temple, some city in Alabama. Is a 1,200 seat venue, and the capacity, I think it was like 229. So it was 20% capacity. And you see this map of what they called fan pod seating. So like you could sit like 5 people together in some sections, but you had to buy the 5 tickets. So in theory, it's like 5 people that you know. So you're comfortable sitting with those people. So it's not strangers. And then there's also other sections where you just buy 2 tickets. I don't know if they have like a sprinkled one here and there, but they're like in what they call these fan pods. They're sort of like in the middle row, every other row, and it's only a few seats. And I think that certainly as kind of a trial balloon to see how it goes, this seems like a good way to go. Now, I think the reason the concert's not going to happen is that in Alabama, the regulations currently are for no more than 50 people. But after Monday, you could actually have this venue with its 229 people.
That's a very, I mean, it's such a weird, because you had sent me the article, actually. I was not aware of what that whole concept. And looking at that if it's a difference of 2 or 3 days, is that really going to make a difference in terms of actual health? No.
Yeah.
And the pod concept, I don't know. I didn't hate what I was looking at.
Yeah.
Because if it meant it's different than what we've seen in the past, but it is a chance to getting back to something familiar. I thought that was very creative. I thought that was a really interesting way around it.
Yeah, and also when it comes to like concessions, it's like everything was going to be closed, with either with the lid or in a closed container. And I'm like, yeah, that goes back to like servers wearing masks. I'm okay with it.
Yep.
Like, yeah,
Yep,
I
totally
don't need
fine.
that open cup. And my theory is that one day, whenever movie theaters open, you won't get the open bucket of popcorn anymore. It's going to be, they'll still make it back there, but you're going to get it with something with a lid. And by the way, it'll be a lot smaller than we're used to, but cost just as much. But you'll be like, oh, but it's safer. Look, it's got a lid on it.
It's okay. Does it still come with butter? That's all I really worry
about. Yeah.
So
Self-serve fountain drinks, I think, are a thing of the past. At least I hope they are, because I'm horrified by them. I picked up food at a Philly cheesesteak place, and people bought drinks, but they were helping themselves to drinks, and I'm like, I'm glad I didn't get one. I like the business model, to mention Chick-fil-A again, where it's like you never get to interact with the drink machine. We interact with the machine. It's for us. You want more? Great. Just take the lid off and I'll fill up your cup.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that in the slightest. I totally agree with you. Even like the hand me a cup and go do it myself. Like, it's cool. I know I'm okay, but I have seen people do things at those drink machines that you're like, oh dear.
Yeah.
Really? Like, so keep it all behind the counter.
It's like
fine.
Growing up in the Northeast. It's like, I knew that I was a good driver when it was snowing, but it was everybody else on the road that wasn't. Not everybody, but you know what I mean? It just takes one person to be like, well, I'm just going to drive faster than usual so I get home before the snow falls. And it's like, so you have to worry about everybody else. And then when you cut out the everybody else, it makes sense. So, and then I'm just like, well, what are the rules for merch? Is like, t-shirts and anything, is that going to be just pre-bagged? Which, I mean, that's also fine. It's like, so.
Have you ever seen this though? Because I swear this happened when I went to see Backstreet Boys last year. The amount of people trying on shirts.
Oh no, I've never seen that. But
no, I'm like, first off, my mind, because being from the Northeast, I immediately go to the criminal aspect that someone's going to try on a shirt and they're going to bolt, right? They're going to take off. But again, I'm not in the Northeast anymore. That's not the mentality. But no, people will sit there and be like, well, I need to see it in a large and an extra large. And I go, well, okay, if you're going to hold it up.
Yeah, which I've done.
Okay.
Look, I've been at concerts in several different body types. There's a time where I'm like, no, I need the extra large. Also, by the way, I have shirts from the early 90s because I'm cool. That was an extra large in 1991. It's a regular large now. So like the sizes aren't the same. And so depending on the manufacturer, depending on, a few different things, I need to at least
even the way it was laundered.
Yeah, right. It's true.
As a collector of vintage T-shirts, trust me, I understand. But but the amount of people that were trying on T-shirts at Backstreet and then taking them off and being like, oh, okay, I want the XL, not the large. And I'm like, I just kind of thought concerts, like, it's a crapshoot.
Yeah.
Like, I'm usually this size, so I'm going to buy it and either, oh, shoot, it's way too big. Well, try to shrink it. Or, ooh, it's a little small. Well, then maybe you need to run. I don't know. But, but that's the thing, because I've done that. I have bought shirts that they say are large, and then I'm like, ooh, I'm like a sausage in this or whatever. And you know what? I just go, but that's on me. I feel like it's a risk.
Yeah.
That it's like gambling.
Yeah. And then I have stuff like earlier this year, I was doing a lower carb thing and I lost a little weight. And honestly, shockingly, I've kept it off during this because let's just say I'm not eating well. But I think it's mostly stress. It's mostly stress. So like the medium Van Halen shirt that I had to buy when I saw them at the Hollywood Bowl actually fits now. And I'm like, oh, great. So I knew that one day I could wear the
medium. One day this was going to work. I did the same thing. We had done a weight loss challenge here at work where me and the three guys, we wanted to lose 100 pounds collectively in 100 days. And we hit our goal. And I took off 21 pounds.
Great.
And I've put back on about 4.
Hey, but you're still 15 up or whatever.
But again, that's how it is. It's just okay. And it's hard because I was on such a roll. I mean, that has been the hardest thing for me is that because my gym shut and that was part of my day. Like I left work and I went to the gym for an hour and I was doing hardcore cardio and sweating it out. And I remember they were still open up until about maybe St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
I remember people saying to me like, wait, you're still going to the gym? Your gym is open. I'm like, look, as long as they're open, I'm risking it. Which was a horrible attitude, but it's a small gym and there aren't a lot of people anyway.
Yeah.
So the risk
Honestly,
wasn't huge.
my thinking on the gym, and the last time that I went to the gym was, let's see, Friday the 13th was the first day that things started to, I think, lock
Right.
down. Because, and as that week went along, there were less and less people at the gym. There definitely were. But I contend that that's the cleanest place that I was going before this anyway, because they clean everything, but then I spray it down before I use it, like the treadmill or whatever. And then I spray it again when I'm done, just because I try to at least pretend that I have some class. It's not true, but I at least try to convey that when other people are watching.
Well,
so I'm like, no, I felt like it was a very clean place, you know?
And I agree. My gym is the same thing. And they came in out of nowhere with like industrial size wipes and whatever. And so I was the same way, that I was wiping everything down, but I'd been doing that for a couple of months because I noticed the amount of people that were leaving equipment and not wiping it down. So now I didn't trust anybody. So I was already in the habit and I didn't care how it looked. Like you said, I think at least my gym seemed very clean. They've still been taking my money every month. So I'd really like to get back there. Please open.
Well, here's the thing. So I don't know, a couple of years ago, I switched to a chain called Planet Fitness, and I'm locked in at the cool price of $10 a month.
$10.
So I will not cancel. And this is how they know they've got me, is because if I were to try and rejoin in 6-8 months, it's going to cost more than $10. So I want to stay at my $10 rate. And they'll send you emails for like, here's a home workout, or, you know, watch this video of a trainer. And they're like, okay, so that's how they're going to justify taking our money, because they're like, hey, we're interacting with you. Look, it's your fault that you're not working out at home. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. You're right. It is my fault.
You're right. I got you. My gym is a little bit smaller, more boutique. The only reason I go to it is because it's literally down the hill.
Oh, sure.
So it is 1/10 of a mile from my studio.
Oh, that's perfect.
And there's the added bonus of like a bunch of Predators work out there, and Titans players, and a couple of country stars. So you know, I go like, let's be honest, I might be gawky. It's a lot of dudes, man. It's a lot of dudes.
I bet.
So there's me, which is doing me no good because I'm just this sweaty, blobby mess with a red face, and like, yeah, I get it. You guys are all chiseled because I see your abs, and you know, and I'm huffing and puffing, but it's you know, and the fact that it is smaller and it's a little bit more, for some reason, that kind of clientele.
Yeah.
That it, you know, it works for me, and they are pretty clean and they're pretty great. So please open.
Yeah, no. And I think that I can understand the concerns, because, you know, look, I talked about how the equipment is relatively clean where I go. I'm horrified whenever I have to use the bathroom there. And I've taken a shower there twice, and it was just absolutely essential. I think our water was shut off. And I'm like, I really don't want to do this. And, you know, it was like, I brought flip-flops and I think I threw them away after, you know, but it was like, you know, taking a shower in college, you know,
yeah,
where
it was
like,
a dorm right there.
Got everything. I should have brought a little shower caddy, although I didn't. And so I mean, I'm like, I want that to be open, mostly because if the gym's open, that means things are okay. Things are doing like pretty well.
It's true.
By the way, that week, the last concert that I went to, I was able to be on the guest list. On Wednesday, March 11th, I saw Soul Asylum at a venue called the Terragram Ballroom. And Dave Perner from Soul Asylum was on with Dennis. And then I also got to interview him too, which I have yet to post, but that's the announcement for everybody listening. I'll be posting that soon.
That'll be exciting.
Yeah, so I got to go, and that was actually the last show that they played. So when I talked to him, I was like, yeah, I was at your last show, because they had a little bit more of their tour left, and they had an album come out in the middle of April. So, you know, he's Dave, the singer, is doing like this. He's like doing a lot of Zoom interviews. He's doing some performances from his home. And like, I'm enjoying a lot of that stuff that people are doing, you know, because like you had Paul Stanley playing the guitar, talking about some of the riffs that he's done. Bruce, formerly of Kiss, like he's doing something every day. And it's cool that we're getting this kind of content. Obviously somebody like Dave Perner, he has product to promote, and I don't know, it seems to have at least helped. I don't know. I think there's a couple ways to look at it. One, this could be the worst time to put out a new album, or two, it could be the best, because like, I might not get to download a new movie and watch it, but I can listen to a new album right now, because, you know, when
I've talked to a few artists about that who have had our records out to promote. And I said, if nothing else, it's because we're all looking for something to fill time. That I may listen to your new album when I'm at the gym, or I listen to it when I'm in the car. Well, now I can take an hour and just listen to this piece of art you put out, because I have an hour to kill. And
Right.
it's really something that I don't think a lot of us have done since we were kids, and I don't even know that kids really do it anymore.
No, but when we were kids, like, you know, I remember obviously before CDs, I was buying things on cassette, and the way that it's sort of like accordioned out so that you could like read the lyrics and, you know, the liner notes are much better suited for albums, for records, but also for CDs. It was still kind of, it was cool to get the booklet. And I know it makes me sound old. I do like, when I can, I do like to get the CD, mostly because I like to flip through the book while I'm listening.
Yeah.
And then, you know, sometimes it's like, well, there's a PDF that has the lyrics, and there's like, yeah, but I don't want that, you know.
And I'll be honest, I'm not gonna do anything with PDF. I'll tell you 100% right now. It's not even in my nature to go look at that. But like you said, if I have the CD, I will go read your liner notes and kind of, and like read along, because it's already that much more familiar when I can read the lyrics to a song I don't know.
Right. No, exactly. I definitely, I like that. And when I was talking to Dave Perner, I showed off that I actually have it on CD, because, you know, albums come out, a lot of people just get them digitally. And then he had to show that he had the LP, which is of course much larger, but that's
yes.
So yeah. And there have been a few albums that have come out in this time. The Tesla one is one that I liked. And I don't know, I'm ordering so much stuff from Amazon anyway, because I'm trying to not go to Target or Walmart or anything. So I'll, the Tesla one was actually something that I pre-ordered like months ago and I forgot was coming, but I've slipped in a couple of things. I'm like, yeah, they're going to send me some stuff. So if I get a CD to listen to, so yeah, I can understand, like, you know, you can't tour with it, but I don't know, by the time you do tour, people are probably going to be more familiar with the new stuff. And I don't know. I've heard about enough bands who are like, you know, supposed to have been on tour that are like, all right, I guess we'll try something. So I think that to circle back to this Alabama show that might not be happening, I would be comfortable going in that sort of a setting. You know, I not mid-March, mid-May, whatever it is right now. I don't quite know when, but if it was like that the first time I went back, I'm like, all right, sure. And, you know, you can book people in larger venues than they have the draw for, so that you can spread them out more. Like, you know, 229, I think, in a 1,200. I'm like, okay, that seems like that would be a comfortable viewing experience. So I'm okay with it. The odd thing about this is this show isn't going to happen. I think it'll probably get rescheduled. But this guy, Travis McCready, he's got a gig the next night in Missouri. It's just outside. And nobody's talking about that one. That one's like definitely going to happen. You know, like this one, because it's got because this one's got the fan pod and all that. Yeah, like Missouri said like a week or two ago, when I first started talking to you about, you know, having you on the Bladtcast, Missouri was like, hey, concerts can happen. And bands are probably like, oh, that's cool, but yeah, we're not, you know?
No, it is. That's because even the outdoor stuff, it's still, well, it's still a finite space.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where I think that we're sometimes missing the mark on how this is actually all going to work. I got an invite actually the other day for an album release party, which is usually its own little mini concert, but it's going to be at a drive-in. And so it's like 40 minutes outside of town, because there's not a drive-in here, but I'm like, okay. And I know a lot of people have tossed around the idea of drive-in concerts. I'll be 100% that I'm not really a fan of that idea, but for an album release party, something that was going to be smaller anyway, what a neat, I was like, I actually wrote back to the publicist. I'm like, what a cool effing idea.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could say effing in an email in Nashville, but I did. Yeah, so yeah, I was like, whatever. And I was like, that's a really cool thing, but I don't want to go see the Def Leppard Stadium tour in my car.
No.
I'm going to put it right out there.
I think that if it gets to a point where the only way that I'm going to see a live performance is at a drive-in, I might be open to, you know, oh, would you like to see this Kiss tribute band? Do you want to see this guy with an acoustic guitar? I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I'd check it out.
Sure.
If there's no alternative. And there, it's funny to talk about 40 miles out of town. Heather, myself, and the kids, we did go to a drive-in in Pomona, California, which is about 40 minutes away. It was a very socially distant outing. We went to Sonic, and if people know Sonic, they bring the food into your car. You don't get out. And so we ate in the car, and we went to the drive-in. We also did not get out. There was some creative thinking on how to use the bathroom, but Heather and I actually we just didn't have to go. I think just mentally we were prepared to like.
Right, like we're not doing this.
Yeah,
we're not.
We're just gonna hold it because you know there were bottles that could have been used. There were diapers that could have been used. And Lucy had a diaper because that's where she's at. And Felix were like, we're just going to go ahead and put you in a pull-up. I know you're a big boy. You use the potty now, but we still got pull-ups from like last year.
Let's just in case, sure.
Yeah. And we did it and it was fun. We saw the Trolls movie, which people can get digitally now for $20. We spent $20 to see it at a drive-in. So it's like, all right, it was fun. I mean, I grew up with a drive-in. It's still open.
Me too.
Warwick, New York. There's a drive-in that actually just reopened this weekend because New York State's allowing them to reopen, but it never closed. It was always open. And so I know that a lot of places don't have them. A lot of them closed in Southern California. Like this one actually is usually a swap meet during the week. The swap meet part is, the swap meet
is always at the drive-in.
Yeah.
Even when we were kids.
Right. The swap meet part is closed, but the drive-in's open. So I think we'll see more drive-in options. I don't quite know what else, drive-in stand-up comedy, maybe,
I wouldn't hate that.
Yeah.
Because I don't need to be upfront
yeah.
for a comedian. I don't know why I'm not so inclined to be right in front of them, but there's something about the big bombast of like Kiss or, I mean, even Garth Brooks. Like, look, if Garth does a drive-in show, I'd go. Well, just because it's Garth, that's fine. But
because you'll have a t-shirt from the drive-in show. That's the main.
I mean, of course, that's really, just go to get the merch. But it would be, I think it would be a lot for me to look at like the Stones and say, pull your Jeep Cherokee up. Like, that's all right. It's cool.
Yeah.
We're good.
And it's like, when we used to light the cigarette lighter, or now people hold up their phones for the ballot, everybody will flash their headlights, I don't love the idea.
Would be cool. You're right.
I don't love the idea for a huge show, but if it were to happen, I would be inclined to at least check it out. But it's not something I'm excited about. I mean, I'm on like forums for bands where people are like, I would never want to go to that. I'm like, all right, but then if like a year from now, the only concert you can go to is at a drive-in, would you at least give it a shot?
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, I think that it's interesting because I think if movie theaters are open, there's kind of been for me as a nerd, there's like been this one release where I've talked to a lot of people about. So this second Wonder Woman movie is going to come out at the beginning of August. And so on a lot of the shows that I do, I talk to people. I'm like, all right, so what if, and this was going back a couple months. I'm like, what if movie theaters open on June 1st? When are you personally comfortable going back? And they would probably, there were movie theaters that were open the first like weekend or week of this, before the full hardcore stay-at-home order. And you would look and they were only selling like, in groups in like corners of the movie theater. Just because out of curiosity, I looked at the AMC movie app and you saw like, and no one's sitting near anybody. So I feel like they'll do that. And I think that for me, I'm like, well, if they open by July 1st, maybe I would be ready by the time Wonder Woman comes out August 5th. But now I'm like, I'll go see a Wonder Woman at the drive-in. I don't have to worry about it. As long as it opens at the drive-in. So what have you thought about this in terms of movies or concerts? So do you feel like you want other people to be the guinea pig and you want to see how concerts go? Just talking specifically about Nashville,
I think actually I would probably be one of the first that would go. And I would want to go if it was a band or an artist, or let's say a movie I really wanted to see, I would be more inclined to go those first couple of days that they're open, because that's when I feel that they're really going to be on their game.
It's a great
and making sure everything is wiped down, making sure they're taking all the temperatures, because they want to keep this going. They want to keep the income. They want to keep it open. I would be more apprehensive about going 2.5 weeks later, because I think you'd have people like me who would be there that first day, would be excited, and yes, we will stand in line, and yes, I will wear my mask, and yes, I will wait for my temperature to be taken. And then 2.5 weeks, people get complacent.
Yeah.
And I go back to, and I don't mean to be morbid about it, but September 11th and the aftermath for maybe like 3 or 4 months afterwards, maybe even longer, but like people got on planes and I remember flying somewhat soon after, not like that month or anything, but I remember getting on a plane and everybody was so orderly and everybody was polite.
Absolutely.
And and it was so, because it was still so fresh to us that no, I'm flying and I'm safe and the precautions have been taken. And then it turns into, people being dragged off the planes because we've overbooked, or, somebody hitting the guy in front of them, or like, you've put your seat back, pounce, pounce, pounce. Like, we've lost that. And I understand it was 20 years ago, but I feel like that's the slope, is that because it can't go anywhere but down. I feel we'll start so high. So I'll be there at the beginning.
I think that, there's a lot of ways in which 9/11 is completely different than this, but that's a great comparison, sort of the airline. I remember I flew after Christmas that year. So, it's 3.5 months after 9/11. And I flew out to Austin and then Los Angeles. And my mom was like borderline crying, saying goodbye to me because she was so worried that I was getting on an airplane. But what was I, like, I don't know, 26 or 25. And I'm like, it's fine. I'm gonna get on an airplane. I'll see you later. I'll see you in a couple of weeks, and I mean, I get it now because I have kids, and you're just like, and like, that's really what it comes down to. It's a lot of like, look, I don't want to get it. And I've talked a little bit. I have a friend, my friend John, who's best man at my wedding. He got it. He lives in Harlem. And he got it bad, like really bad.
I saw your post about that, and that your words have stuck with me. About him. And just, and like, you said that nobody was, it wasn't something that you were being very public about, and it didn't sound like something he was being particularly public about.
Yeah, that was and I asked him, I'm like, are you okay with me sharing this? Because he had just written it. I had known because I had texted with him. I knew like a week before.
Sure.
But he just wasn't talking about it. I think just he didn't feel good. And he still has a cough, by the way. He's like most of the way there, and he still has a cough. And so, like, I know somebody that had it, but he did pull through it. And like, I can't say that if I got it, I would be fine, because you never know, but I'm way less worried about myself getting it than I am about my kids getting it, and early on it was like, oh, don't worry, kids don't get it. Well, kids do get it. And unfortunately kids have died from it. So, and they're like, oh yeah, but that's such a small percentage. I'm like, yeah, but that's still a kid, and I have it. I have two. So
it's a small percentage until it impacts you.
Right. Exactly.
That's always, I mean, I go back to the story of Shirley Jackson, the lottery, that like, oh, well, we have to kill one person out of this village in order for our crops to grow. Oh, well, it's not my family, so it's cool until it is your family.
Exactly.
So
everything's cool until it isn't, it's like,
right.
Great.
Like, my mom has been bugging me and my younger brother, and he lives in West Virginia. And she's like, well, I haven't seen you guys since Christmas, and I wish you'd come visit. And it's like, well, but you're in that group of more at risk. And I understand you guys have been good and you feel fine. But again, I don't know what I have, what I don't. I don't know what he has, what we don't. And so when she starts with that, it's not even meant to be a guilt trip. It's just, hey, I miss you guys. And like, no, we're fine. We're fine. Like, are you though?
Yeah.
Because we may not be. So
yeah. Right, exactly. And it's there's that level of it. I mean, my mom got remarried, and we watched it on Facebook from the church. Aww. Because we were gonna go, and then as it started to get closer, she's like, I don't think you should bring the kids. I'm like, well, I'm glad you said that, because I don't think we should bring the kids either.
Yeah.
There was like, at one point there was a conversation that maybe just I would go, but then that's like, you know what, let's just not anybody travel anywhere. So, and it's like, Felix and Lucy are very used to seeing their grandparents a lot. They haven't seen them in, it's almost 3 months now. But we talk to them on FaceTime, or we do Zoom maybe like once a month or something, where we like all eat dinner. But, and it's like, oh, I get it. It's like, they definitely want to see them, but her parents are older. So I don't know. I mean, we've at least talked about the idea of like, okay, what if we go on like hardcore lockdown and then we stay with them? And then like, they don't go out, we don't go out. I mean, beforehand. And the prospect of being in Los Angeles, basically in our house for the next 3 months. They live in Orange County, which it still has some cases, but it's not the same. It's just not as densely populated. So it's something we're starting to actually talk about for real.
That's it. My parents are in Cleveland, Ohio. And like we talked about at the beginning, I am not working from home. I'm not working remotely. So it's not like I can go up there and just shelter in place. I can't hunker down there. It's like I would pop in for a weekend, and that just seems
like it's too risky, not worth it. Yeah.
Because also, how am I going to get there? Fly?
Right.
That's the other thing. I'm going to get on an airplane, or I mean, I technically can drive, but it's 8 hours, so that's a pretty big turnaround for a weekend. So in terms of it being feasible, it's really not. And I appreciate that you miss us and I miss you and would love to see you, but it's just probably not the best time.
This just isn't the time. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know, you can just hope like, well, you know, we saw you last Christmas. Maybe we'll see you this Christmas. Let's hope, you know, and
that's
it's just
what's
so crazy,
weird.
which is so crazy to talk about, you know,
It is
because it's like, you know, Felix's birthday's in July and, you know, we've had like classmates of his who had birthday parties scheduled, cancel them. And then some of them have like, oh, let's, you know, we've sent videos, we've done FaceTime and stuff. And now it's like, oh man, I think that his is going to fall into a territory where I'm not even sure. And he's supposed to start kindergarten in the middle of August. So it's like, I don't even know where we're at.
Oh
that,
yeah.
you
If
know?
that's even gonna.
Yeah. So it's like, it's too hard to figure out. And their preschool's been closed. So there's so many question marks, but you know, it's interesting to kind of know. Yeah, I do appreciate your point about being at like the first concert because it's going to be the cleanest one, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like going on the airplane after the big plane crash because that's the safest time to be on it. Yeah.
Of course. That's which is
Yeah.
like a horrible way to put it, but trust me, that goes
but-
through my mind when I'm on planes. So
You don't want to go to let's go to the movie theater in 6 months, you know, because then it's like, they're not even going to sweep up after the show.
Right. You're gonna be like, that's somebody else's popcorn. Who brought ribs in here?
Yeah.
You know, you're going to be looking at.
Well, it's always enjoyable to talk to you. Before we go, a lot of times what I've been doing on my YouTube channel is because I'm upstairs in the house. I've actually been able to come out into the daylight because the kids are with Heather at that other family's house. A lot of what I will do is I will do unbagging or like I have all these comic book boxes behind me down there and I'll just grab stuff out of there and talk about it sometimes. But I thought about a collection that I had that would actually be interesting to you in particular. And these are from the late 80s, early 90s. These are rock and roll comics. For those watching on YouTube, you can actually see I'm holding up, I believe issue 1 was Kiss, but then let me do some of the better ones. Here's the Guns N' Roses one with an Axl that does not look like him, really.
I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah, these are from the late 80s. I could probably even tell you exactly when these were published.
Wow.
May 1992. I think Slash looks pretty good on that one.
He does. That's a good rendering.
That was the second one. This one I think is actually a really cool cover.
That is a cool cover.
This was like 2 of my my favorite things actually. Here was a surprising one. White Snake, and this is the Steve Vai White Snake. So it's 19.
Yep. All right.
Yeah.
Sure.
Aerosmith.
Do they go on adventures? Like
no, it's like biographies, which
okay.
So it's like, yeah, this is the Zeppelin one. This, of course, this one I put in with a cardboard backing. This is the Alice Cooper one. So clearly this one was important to me.
That's pretty great.
Yeah, this was issue 18. So I remember waiting for like 3 years because they didn't come out every month. I was like, well, yeah, but when are they going to do Alice? Like enough already. This is surprising. There's a Queensryche one, which I like Queensryche. I mean,
sure, yeah.
I liked them more then. And this is the 3rd Guns N' Roses one that I'm showing you. This one's Guns N' Roses live. So it's like about
they were tapping that vein.
Yeah.
Like GNR was making money.
And I thought about it just because I have all these boxes behind me. I'm like, well, I wanted to show Carsen these comics. There was a Def Leppard one, but I must not have it. But I love the idea that it was like, if you think about the early 90s, it's like I probably learned a lot about the history of Kiss from that comic book.
Yeah,
because
actually, what a palatable way to do it.
Yeah, I don't think I knew that much, about like, this guy, Mark St. John, who was on the Animalize album, he did like 1.5 shows with them. And then he had this condition where he couldn't perform. And then Bruce Kulick, I'm like, I didn't know any of that. It's like, if you just look, this guy's on the record, he must have been on the tour. And then this guy's on the new record. It must have been, and it's like, it just doesn't work that way. Especially
that is pretty neat.
Yeah, especially comics where where bands that have had like lots of lineup changes. Sometimes they can make the best stories.
Yeah, that's what you always really want, those down dig, like get in there facts.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm gonna have to go look at those.
Yeah. Well, you can. You know what?
Just Google them.
I'm sure there's plenty of people that have them in boxes like mine, where they'd be happy to part with the Def Leppard one for you. So
now we'll see.
I hadn't thought about them in a while. these comics,
Yeah.
but when I knew I was going to talk to you, I was like, I had to dig around a little bit, but
Well,
so.
thank you, because I literally am today years old knowing that those existed.
Exactly. And I mean, they did multiple printings of a lot of them. So,
Yeah.
there was some degree of value like 30 years ago. I don't know what they cost now.
We'll see
but,
what they are now, but they just sound interesting as just to read,
yeah,
to learn. I mean, it's a fun way to get history, I think.
Yeah, I'm inclined to reread one or two of them now that I've actually gotten them out. Like the Kiss one will probably be fun. I'll have to I'll tweet out some screen grabs
Oh, please
just I'll
do.
take
Yes.
pictures of some of it. And some of the art is a little questionable at times. Like that Axel that really didn't look like him. It was like,
I mean,
is that an elderly Danny Cooksey? Like who is that?
That's exactly what they did. You're right.
That's kind of
not
what they
Axel.
did.
Yeah.
Well, Jessica, Carsen, if people want to keep in touch with you, where do they find you on Twitter? They'll see us interact about concerts and t-shirt prices and on sales and reschedule.
I love it when people chime into our conversations too. But Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, it's all Carsen on Air, and it's Carsen.
And let's give a plug to the show that you do. So you have a syndicated show.
Yeah, I have my own syndicated Country with Carsen, which is middays, so depending on your time zone, but also I'm part of Big D and Bubba, which those guys are on all over the country and all over the world on AFN. So they're part of the armed forces. Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
My friend who's doing much better from having coronavirus, he grew up in Tokyo for a long time. So anything that was on AFN is the stuff that he got. Yeah. Yeah. So that's great. I didn't even realize that. I thought it was the Big D and Bubba. I thought was just local there in Nashville. I didn't even realize. But I get so much is syndicated now that it's just, unfortunately, so much easier to be like, we could have a morning show, or we could take that. Show
and they've been doing it for years. So it's funny, when I got the job with them, like I knew who they were, like I'd heard of them. So and then friends of mine who had listened to them in places where they weren't, they're like, "You're gonna be on Big D and Bubba," and I'm like, "You know who they are?" "Oh, okay, yeah, because they're on in your town."
Yeah, it's funny.
So, pretty cool.
Our friend Tom Kelly, who we were pages with at NBC, he posted this video last week where he was on what used to be the Z Morning Zoo on Z100 with Elvis Duran, who's been there like 25 years.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm so much more excited to see Tom on Z100 in the morning than if he like got a stand-up set on the Tonight Show. Okay, I'd be super excited for him if he got that. But like the kid in me is like, oh my God, you were on Z100?
Z100? Are you serious? Like, yeah, that's incredible. I actually have on a radio t-shirt today from my hometown like pop station. Top 40,
let's see what it is. Can you show it, or is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Let's see what we got. We've got Kiss 95.7.
Kiss 95.7 out of Hartford, Connecticut.
This is my Alice Cooper Special Forces t-shirt, since we're showing off t-shirts, which is a 1981 album. No, I did not go to the tour. I don't usually like to seek out these, and this isn't like a vintage shirt. It's like I've seen this shirt originally. It's like a recreation of it, but I always wanted it so much that I'm like, I think I asked for it for Christmas. It was like, obviously t-shirts cost a lot more than they should right now, as evidenced by the red like ringers, like mid sleeve Kiss shirt I got at the end of the road tour last year for $75.
Oh my God.
And I was like, instead of buying two shirts, I'm going to buy one overpriced shirt. And
one shirt. That's it. That's all. Yeah. I feel you.
And here's the worst part. It's not that comfortable. It's not soft.
No. I bought $100 Backstreet Boys zip up hoodie, and I got home and it was too small in the arms.
Oh.
But that was 20 pounds ago, so I should probably go try it on. So we'll see. Maybe it fits now. But I mean, what a disappointment.
Yeah, I went to see Bruce Springsteen on Broadway. The Broadway shows that he did.
Yeah.
I lucked out. Like I was waiting in the cancellation line, and I was like number 2, and I was like, I felt pretty good that I was going to get something. And then this lady was just like, does anybody need just one ticket? The only catch is you had to go in with her right now, because it was a printed home ticket, which I hate for a million reasons, mostly because I can't really save it. But she had printed both tickets out on the same piece of paper, so I had to go in with her.
Oh, okay, yeah.
She wanted like $300. And I was like, oh, can I Venmo you or PayPal? And she clearly didn't like either of those words. So she started talking to other people. So I got out my wallet. I counted out. I had $267. So I'm like, would you take $267? And I was prepared to also be like, when we get inside, I could use my credit card. I could have bought her something, but she was like, sure, just come with it. And I'm like, great. So having less money in my wallet actually got me into that show.
It really did. That's amazing.
Yeah. I bought a sweatshirt there, and it was $60 and it fits, but it's tighter than I wish it was. So
it's just pretty in your closet.
Yeah, well, I'll wear it. It's just, and now it fits a little better than when I bought it.
Yeah,
but, I just wouldn't.
Congrats.
There was a point where I'm like, I'm just not going to zip it. Anyway, Carsen on air as you are. Always great to talk to you, and hopefully the next time we talk, we'll be talking about what shows we're actually going to, or maybe it'll be a weird conversation about like, what was your drive-in concert like? Here's what my drive-in concert was like.
Either way, it's always a great time.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a blast.
Yeah, we'll talk again soon. And of course, everybody who wants to keep in touch with me at Christian DMZ, Twitter and Instagram. And of course, we also have at Bladtcast on Facebook. Well, at Bladtcast on Twitter, the Bladtcast on Facebook. Give us the old thumbs up, and Bladtcast.com, Bladtcast. That is all the time we have for this week, but we'll see you next time on the Bladtcast.